We only ask you to attend school 30 weeks out of the year. Now, that's not too much, is it?
No, sir.
So a boy can hardly afford to miss 2 weeks in a row, especially with a spelling bee coming up.
I know, Mr. Rogers, but I was needed at home. My pa broke his collarbone. Log come down on him, and he can't do much with just one arm.
Well, tell your father I hope he's better soon, for his sake. And for your sake, too. Willie, I want you at that spelling bee next week.
I liked going to school. I liked Mr. Alexander Rogers. He told us ciphers were the most important thing you could learn. Know 'em, and you could grow up to be a surveyor and earn $30 a month. Being able to spell correctly, Mr. Rogers said, was a sure sign of an educated person. You could read books and write letters and essays and maybe even become president someday. Everybody was dying to be in the spelling contest, as much for the prizes as for the honor of winning. After school, we'd all hurry down to Mr. Peabody's store, where the prizes were kept. For the boys, it was a genuine squirrel gun. For the girls, the prize was a real spinning wheel. I guess I never wanted anything so much as that gun. All the way home, 3 miles, I'd practice spelling words, like Indiana, I-N-D-I-A-N-A, which is the state we live in, and flatboat, F-L-A-T-B-O-A-T, which is how my pa and all the men take their corn and hogs and things they want to sell to the big market towns. Over the river's the best way. By wagon takes too long, and there aren't hardly any roads anyway. Peddlers come by a few times a year, selling pots and pans and cloth made back east. And there are always new families moving west from places back there, too. People hereabouts are dreadful glad to welcome the new neighbors and get the news about what's going on in the world outside Indiana. Neighbors got to help each other out here. My pa says, if you're not willing to help, you got no... You can't clear fields by yourself, or build a house, or harvest a crop of corn. My pa first planted corn before I was born. Came out from New England and bought land from the government at $2 an acre. Plant corn even before building a house. That's the way it's done. Our house, which we're sure proud of, is made of hewn logs, cut square. My folks started with just a little cabin, kept fixing it up and adding to it. Now we even got window glass and board floors. Most of the furniture Pa made himself. Other pieces he traded for at the market town. It seems like what Pa doesn't make, Ma does. She makes the Johnny cake from cornmeal, preserves, quilts and bedding, and all our clothes. She makes soap out of tallow, wood ashes, and lots of stirring. My sister makes the butter. She takes the milk out of the spring house and pours it into the churn. The cream gets thicker and thicker with the churning, and pretty soon it's butter. We don't eat the chickens unless they're extra numerous, else we wouldn't have any eggs. I do the milking twice a day, now that Pa can't use his arm. Cutting and loading the hay is one of the biggest jobs of the year. Pa's been worried about getting it in before the next rain. Got to have enough hay on hand to feed the stock through the winter. While the corn's growing, we have to keep it cultivated, lest the weeds choke out the corn. Most everything we eat, aside from salt and sugar, we raise ourselves. I don't mind the plowing and cultivating so much, but splitting rails for fences and chopping wood for the cook fire sure does get tiresome, though I'd never like Pa to think I didn't want to do it. If our fire goes out, I go over to a neighbor's, get a light from their fire, and carry it home. Easier than making a new one ourselves out of flint. Not much time for practicing the words. But chores just don't wait on a person. You surely do get tired by nighttime.
Government.
Government. G-O-V-E-R-N-M-E-N-T. Government.
It's a sorry state when a boy is forced to do a man's work.
The grist mill is where our corn is ground into meal. Every few weeks we haul a few sacks of corn into Mr. Daniels, the miller. He's about the most important person around because everyone depends on him for grinding their corn. Mr. Daniels pours the corn from the sacks into the hopper. The big wheel outside is turned by water from the river falling over it. It turns the other wheels and gears and things inside. Never could figure out why it takes so many wheels, but I guess it does. The corn drops down from the hopper and goes between the grindstones. Out comes the yellow cornmeal, ready to be made into johnny cake or flapjacks or corn dodgers. If it weren't for the mill, we'd have to grind the corn by hand, the way the Indians do. We take back home what we need and arrange to ship the rest to the market towns by flatboat. That's one way. Another way, feed it to the hogs and the corn carries itself to the market. The men go hunting from time to time, for deer or turkey mostly, so we can have other meat besides pork. Pa let me come, since he couldn't shoot with only one arm. But all I got was a couple of old crows.
That was a perfect shot, Willie. You ought to have a squirrel rifle of your own.
I aim to have me one, Mr. Haverly. I surely do.
Except aiming and having are two different things. On the day of the spelling bee, when it seemed like everybody in southern Indiana was in town, we had to stop by the store and attend to some trading. Hardly any real money is used. Mr. Nagel, the storekeeper, sets the price. So much corn or so many eggs for a yard of cotton material. And Ma figures out what we can afford. It was a genuine squirrel gun. I guess I never wanted anything so much as that gun. Everybody sure seemed interested in the spelling bee, though they weren't here just to see it. This was a celebration day, having to do with our territory being a state now. And the spelling bee was just part of the doings. There was a shooting match for the men, with some of the best shots in the territory here. There were games like Red Rover and Run Sheep Run for the kids. The women make quilts and sell them to raise money for the church. Never could see why it takes so many ladies to make one old quilt. But making quilts is as much for talking as anything else. There's enough talking in a day to last 7 months full of Sundays. They got Annalise Cooper and Jim Bob Rutherford practically married, and they haven't no more than barely met. Hathaway's just too bossy to abide, and they're forever talking about her. A town festival gives the men a good chance to visit the blacksmith shop, to get the horses shod, and make trades for tools and implements. Mr. Kindred, the blacksmith, makes everything himself. Wagon wheels, sickles, saws, files, even wolf traps. A good axe costs $4. A rifle, about $30. At the meeting house, the men talk about the price of corn in New Orleans, or who they should send to Washington to represent us. Finally, when I couldn't stand the wait any longer, it was time for the spelling bee to get started. I kept thinking, maybe it'd been better if I'd stayed home. There were boys here from all over this part of Indiana. You could tell the good spellers a mile away. The girls had their contest first for the spinning wheel prize. Then it was our turn. Mr. Alexander Rogers gave us the words. Mr. Edward Lucas, who was a judge in real life, said whether the words were spelled right or not. Miss a word, you sit down, and the last boy standing wins. You keep hoping you won't get a word you never heard of, or a word you can't figure out by sounding it. Finally, there were just two left standing, me and a boy from upriver named of Robert Murdoch.
Willie McLaren, Liberty.
Liberty. L-I-B-E-R-T-Y. Liberty.
Robert Murdoch, Improvement.
Improvement. I-M-P-R-O-V-E-M-E-N-T. Improvement.
Willie McLaren, Constitution.
Constitution. C-O-N-S-T-I-T-U-T-I-O-N. Constitution.
Robert Murdoch, Independence.
Independence. I-N-D-E-P-E-N-D-A-N-C-E. Independence.
That is incorrect.
Incorrect.
This fine weapon to Willie McLaren, who's proved he's not only a boy who can spell, but a man as big as any man on the frontier.